Welcome to the Calumet Roundtable. I'm your host, Tom Roach. I'm joined today by my guest, Maestro Kirk Muspratt. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Tom. Thank you.
Kirk has had a long career in the Chicago area as a conductor and also someone who's promoting classical music. WTTW called you the magical maestro and said that you would light your hair on fire if you thought it would further the cause. Why did they say that?
Oh, that's a very nice and unique compliment. I don't know if I'd light my hair on
Good.
fire.
I'm glad to know that you would do
but that's very sweet of them. I love classical music. I've loved music, all kinds of music, since I was a little boy. I want to give back. I happen to be in a leadership role with 2 orchestras in our region here, and so I want to make sure that especially young people have the chance to believe in and enjoy the greatness and the miracle of great music. If I was an English teacher, I would be doing it for Shakespeare. If I was a dancer, I'd be making them watch Baryshnikov, those kinds of things. But it's a miracle. Music is a gift to us all, and I happen to be pretty much a classical musician, so that's the gift that was given to me. So yes, I absolutely believe in it.
Okay. We'll talk about some of the things you've done to promote it. I'll just mention, though, that you're the music director for the Northwest Indiana Symphony and also the artistic music director for the new Philharmonic. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you also work with the DuPage Opera Theater,
Yes.
I believe. So how did you get started in this? What was your...
Conducting music?
No, I mean, when did you discover that you really, wanted to devote your life to something like this?
Well, I'll try to do it quickly, Tom. I grew up in a coal mining village in Alberta. Everybody
Well, this is going to be interesting then.
Yeah,
Yes, let's
okay,
explore
okay.
that.
So it's all about environment, which is
Yeah.
sort of what I was alluding to in my opening response to you. I think if people are given the right environment, no matter what it is, whether it's soccer or whether it's the violin, then you have a chance. So I grew up in this little coal mining village in Alberta, isolated in the Rockies from everything. Yeah. No TV, no nothing, snow, hockey, but everybody almost invariably was from the old country. So they valued music. They valued
Which old country?
Well, I would say Italian, Polish,
Okay,
Ukraine.
so it's sort of a mixed it's an American old
So you go
ethnic
into the
crowd,
Giacomuzzi's house, they're speaking Italian. You go into the Dobek's house, they're speaking Czech.
Okay.
There's an Italian grocery store, there's a Polish grocery store. There's nobody speaking English.
Right.
So when you go into the Parasini's house, they're playing Verdi and they're making dandelion wine. When you go into the Polish house, of course, they're playing Chopin. And I didn't know any differently. So my first day of music, my mother takes me to my piano lesson, and that was the case for you and you and you and you and you. Every kid in the town studied music. In my graduating class of 100 people, which was the largest graduating class still in this little place I live in, 10 of us are professional musicians.
No kidding.
Yes.
That's
so
amazing.
It's all about environment. And
maybe a really good music teacher. I don't know.
Fantastic teachers. And then I came to the United States and studied in the United States. But also just the gift. God happened to give me some gift for music. If I'd been a great physicist in the Crow's Nest Pass, I would not be winning a Nobel Prize for physics. So I started in a small town with the perfect environment. That's my answer, I guess.
And you've tried to connect other people to this experience that you've had in the Chicago area here. Can we talk about some of the things you've done to promote this? I know you have some things that you do after the concerts where you invite people up. Was there something, Cookies with Kirk?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Get fat on Cookies with Kirk.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cookies with Kirk is one way, and it's actually just a way. For instance, at New Philharmonic, what we do is we put the cookies way down at the end of the lobby, and the stairway out to the building is here. So I stand here, the people go for the cookies that way, and then they stop and talk to each other, and they get to know each other, and they say, boy, I hated that Tchaikovsky, or what's wrong with that pianist, or I love the Beethoven, or why don't we do more movie music? And then I stop and I talk to them. So there's a social and family experience almost that you create. The other way that I try to do it, Tom, is something like I started doing Just Ask Kirk cards. So you come in your program, there's a card in your program, and it says Just Ask Kirk anything you want. You can say what color socks are you wearing, or was Beethoven really deaf by the time he was 30? I come out at intermission and I answer a few of them. And then if it's a complicated question like, did Haydn really influence Mozart greatly, I'll call you on the phone and say, Dr. Roach, it's Kirk Muspratt. You asked me a question, or I'll email you and say, here's a great book to read or something. So that personal contact with people, I hope, makes them feel valued. I hope makes them feel connected to our orchestra.
You're sort of a maestro of communication as well, then, I think.
Oh, but
those are all good communication strategies.
In the
yes.
communications
Right.
department,
Yeah, right.
and what is the 21st century about?
Yeah.
It's about communicating. So, and that human touch, which maybe in other ways we may be losing, or we say we are.
Well, one of the themes of this show, the Roundtable show, is we try to look at how things are influenced or filtered through mass media. A lot of what you just described is actually you're trying to have personal contact with people and expose them through conversation and things like that. How do you feel that classical music has been served well by mass media?
Oh, what a great question. Well, in some ways, of course, yes, because you can look at a recording of von Karajan conducting the Berlin Philharmonic and actually see that. You cannot see Toscanini conducting the NBC Orchestra in 1920. In other ways, though, you can go on iTunes and buy a Mendelssohn Symphony or listen to a John Williams concert or find the music to Valor or whatever. And
Listening to the background music on cartoons sometimes, right?
yeah, in the old days.
And the Lone
Absolutely.
Ranger.
Yes.
But I mean, overall, has mass media been more of a distraction? Do you think there would be more people tuned into this today if we didn't have all of this competition?
Yes, I do. I think just like Barnes and Noble bookstore is hurt by Kindles or something,
Right,
because you cannot see a 16-year-old person, or how many of our schools here are going to no books. So how many of our schools do not have an orchestra anymore? When you look at the Whiting yearbook from the 1950s, you will see in Whiting a full concert orchestra, and in 1955, there are 7 ladies with white dresses playing double basses.
Okay.
Yes, so what is,
Yeah.
and what changes that? Yes, I would say technology distracts from what
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, that would be my.
And yet you've used it to your advantage. You did Halloween concerts and some interesting things. Can you tell us about some of the pseudo events, perhaps I could call them, that you've created?
Yeah, for example, something like a Halloween concert, especially when we have either the full chorus or the youth orchestra with us, whichever we decide to use because of space, that's a complete blast. And it sort of demystifies. You could be playing Saint-Saëns, or you could be playing, something like that. Or you could be playing Batman, or you could be playing Elfman, another Elfman piece, or Little Shop of Horrors, or you could, whatever. And you're still going to the orchestra, you're still hearing a violinist play beautifully, and it's just fun. And maybe not during a Mahler symphony with a death march, but...
Well, that might go with Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's an hour and 10 minutes long, so you got to be careful. I would say that you have to be careful to, in this day and age, to entertain people to some small extent, whether it's with cookies after, whether it's with showing a little video about the piece beforehand, informing people. Why should one of your students who's going to be a dentist know something about Mahler or Danny Elfman being a member of Oingo Boingo? But if you start talking about, you can see the influence of Oingo Boingo in Danny Elfman's Nightmare Before Christmas, then, people love to learn. And music is a complex, wonderful thing to learn about.
It is. So part of this, of course, is just getting people's attention, and so that they'll appreciate this. Another quote: the Tribune named you Chicagoan of the Year,
Yes.
and they said that you were trying to take the stuffiness out of live classical music. Do you think it's stuffy, or are you trying to get the image of stuffiness away from it? How do you?
I'll probably get
define
assassinated in the parking lot on the way
Yeah.
out of here for saying this. But yes, I do think it's stuffy. I think that most orchestras still, you go and you you drive wherever for 5 hours, you park your car for $8,000, you buy your ticket for 100 and something bucks, you take your coat off in the coat room.
Still cheaper than seeing McCartney.
Oh, yeah. He makes $1 million every concert he does down at the football stadium. I happen to know that.
Yeah, okay.
1 million for each one. So, yeah, it's still less. But in the end, does anybody ever speak to you? Do you have any interface with any musician? I ask the musicians to come out after the concert and to meet them. And I'm only reacting to what would I like. I would love it after Colbert, if I actually had Colbert come out after and just say hi, even if he shakes my hand for 5 seconds. Yeah. Now I'm a fan forever, even though I've been at the show. If I go to the X Symphony and I get to meet the conductor afterwards. I actually learned this when I was a piano student in Philadelphia, that Eugene Ormandy, every concert in his large green room would meet anybody who wanted to come and say hello to him. Now, he would only speak to you for 15 seconds and just shake your hand and go, oh, you're the piano player with the long hair. How's it going? And somebody would usher you away. Yeah. But you actually got to go and meet Eugene Ormandy. And to me, that made a difference. So I want people to come, and maybe we're doing the most serious Beethoven Fifth Symphony in the world. But I want them to feel like we're all together. We're communicating, we're having an experience together, and you're the most important part, you're the listener. And I want them to feel that very tangibly.
So by most people's expectations, what you're doing is particularly difficult because you're doing it in the Midwest, and you're not even, centered in Chicago, you're kind of in the outskirts of Chicago. This is a very blue-collar community in Northwest Indiana, and even over at DuPage to some extent, right? Is it a tougher task over here? What do you think about the audience?
That's also a great question. I don't feel it. What I tried to do when I first came here was, there's Munster, there's Hammond, there's Highland, there's Griffith, and each of them has a town feeling, and it's pretty intimate. People know each other. Yeah. So you can really get to know people over here. When I go to Strax, I go up the aisle with the soup, and I talk to 3 people. They stop me and say, oh, hi, Kirk, or hi, Maestro. You can really talk to people. It's an advantage. In Chicago, you cannot do that. You cannot be downtown and just be, and saying, well, what did you think? Oh, your kid's at this school, he wants to learn the saxophone. Here's my card, call me, talk to me, those kinds of things. I like it, actually. Yeah. There's great advantages. No, I have to say, I don't find any anything that gets in my way in any way, and the audience is very warm. I'm from Alberta in Canada, so I like Midwesterners. I think they're the warmest, easygoing people in the world.
Well, that's good. That's very good. Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. The Calumet Roundtable will be right back. Welcome back to the Calumet Roundtable. I'm your host, Tom Roach. My guest today is Maestro Kirk Muspratt, and we've been talking about classical music and Maestro's efforts to expose more people to it and to help them appreciate it more. One of the things that's always intrigued me about musicians is that when they're playing, when you're seeing them on stage or whatever, right? They're just very comfortable and relaxed, and they're producing this beautiful, seemingly spontaneous music, but there are thousands and thousands of hours that go into practicing to get somebody ready to do that. You're a musician as well, right? I mean, can you talk to me a little bit about what that's like and those lonely hours that one spends?
You're exactly on track. When I was a pianist in undergrad and graduate school, I would practice 8 hours a day, except on Sunday I would practice 6 hours a day. And that was normal, whether I was in New York or Philadelphia, and all the people around me that were pianists. Now, an oboist can probably only practice 3 or 4 hours a day because their embouchure will wear out. A violinist can go all day. And like with our orchestra.
So kids, go for the oboe if you don't want to have to spend too much time practicing, right? Okay.
Well, except it's so hard. The oboe's so hard.
Well, let's not scare them away.
For instance, when we do a program, we're off camera, we were talking about the summer program, there'll be 15 or 16 pieces on the program. We have 2 hours and 15 minutes to rehearse it. So I have to know that if I have a 4-minute piece, all I need is 6 minutes to rehearse it. That means you have to be able to play your violin absolutely without thinking about it.
Right.
Okay? It means that you have known that music inside out before you get there, especially the tough passages. And that's it. We put it together as 80 people, boom, right then. And that's our job in the moment. Next piece, it's not, I was just talking to some friends in the Chicago Symphony. You can do a kiddie concert with them in 45 minutes. Because if they're at that, the hours of dedication it takes and the difficulty of playing the aforesaid oboe or the violin or being a singer or being a ballet dancer. My gosh.
I was going to this coffee house. Had a one night a week open mic thing, and the guy who hosted it was just great. He knew all these songs. He just played them flawlessly, and he even had songs that we were familiar with that he changed the tempo on them and made them sound like something else and made them more interesting. And I was practicing. I'd maybe play for 20 minutes, 3 different nights a week or something. And I said, how often do you practice? He said, 3 hours a day. I was floored.
Yes.
How do I think I'm going to, play on the same, and this was like a place that had like 8 people in the audience, right? He was practicing 3 hours a day. How do I go on stage with somebody who's put that much effort into it? So I guess my next question is, do you think there are people who are extremely talented who didn't have the patience to do all the practice?
Oh, sure, and that happens all the time, and it's typical. If we have a 14-year-old boy like me, I just tell my mother and my teacher I'm quitting. It's too hard. It's too boring. I wanna be with my friends. I wanna play hockey. I wanna play in my rock band in the basement. Bach is too hard. Of course, they don't let me quit. So what happens is a lot of times people do quit, and to be, for instance, a great singer, to be a beautiful ballerina. It's your whole life, and in some ways you have no social life. You talk about lonely hours. One of the reasons I started to conduct a little bit is I thought I can get out of the basement of these places 8 hours a day. I could go take a score under a tree and eat an apple and be outside. As stupid as I was. Now I study 12 hours a day. I have no friends. I live like a hermit, and you could basically just put me in a porta potty with a score and throw me an apple once in a while. I'd be fine.
So what's the motivation, though? I mean, what keeps you going?
Love. It's just you have to do it. If you said, "Oh, go be an astronaut or be president or be a poet," first of all, I don't have the gift. First of all, but it's.
And a lot of people go into those fields without the gift, but we don't have to follow up on that.
True.
Yeah.
However, also I would say that it's astonishing in that it challenges me, Tom. I have to use every bit of my brain, every bit of whatever God-given gift I have, all my training, all my wits, all my creativity, to make a program and to connect with the people on the stage and make them sort of come to me in a way, or believe in what I want from that piece of genius. So it absorbs me, and I have to tell you, somebody asked me today at a luncheon, "Kirk, do you ever go on a holiday?" And I said, "No, I have too much guilt." And also, I know it's going to sound strange, but I'm sort of bored, because what it takes to study, I don't care whether it's a Superman score or a really beautiful sacred piece or a Mozart symphony, my mind's like Jell-O afterwards. And almost everything else sort of is like, to me. So
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's love, obsession, no choice, fate, destiny. Not sure how to label it, Tom.
Yeah. Well, and then there's the role that talent plays. And in my family, one of my children played piano, took lessons for years and years and just practiced for fun, hours and hours a day. But always was working from sheet music. And one of my other kids, we signed him up for lessons a couple times, and the instructor said, you're kind of wasting your time here. He's really not,
Yeah.
has no aptitude for this. And then when he was about 16 years old, he taught himself. He asked me to show him a couple of chords on guitar. Taught himself how to play guitar. A couple months later, taught himself how to play piano. And then was figuring out melodies and music on the piano and teaching them to my daughter, who was the one who'd been studying piano all those years. Right? What's going on there?
Gift.
What happens?
Yeah, it's a miracle. Who knows?
But is it like all of a sudden waking up one day and realizing that you understand French or German or something, and you're just
And we know
pulled
those
into this
people
thing?
that study
Yeah.
6 languages and learn them in 6
Yeah.
years and can do Portuguese,
Yeah.
and also Romanian.
Yeah.
And you wonder, how do you, I'm astonished by, for instance, they have art classes over at the CVPA, and I
Yeah.
watch young people doing beautiful drawings, and I can't do stickmen.
Yeah.
I watch the Science Channel, and I think about those engineers that are sending a space probe to Mars and figuring out,
Right.
and I go, no, you don't not want me in that room. But I started piano on my first day of grade 1, and by November, I could read and play O Canada on the piano. So
Yeah.
every morning now, I got to play O Canada. And people were like, oh my gosh, he just started with Kitty C and Doggy D, and now the boy can play O Canada. So here I'm in this little village with a beautiful environment for music, and I happen to be given some talent for music. And I've always loved it. And then you go to a competition, and there's 30 people play, and the adjudicator said, now this boy, so you figure, okay, I'd like to play for the NHL. That's what I really want to do. But it doesn't seem to be working out,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's Mr. Tave's gift, is to be captain of the Hawks. And your son may have had an innate gift
Yeah.
and just not been learning the piano scales and doing all that. He might have been a rock composer.
Right.
Didn't have the background maybe at that point in his life, or
Right.
it's a little too late, but absolutely it's gift.
So there's the talent and then the practice and the effort that goes into this. At some point, does this bridge into something else? I mean, do you feel like you have a philosophy of music that you've accumulated, that you've built on as you've gotten into this? Do you think you look at things differently than other musicians because of your own experience?
Wow.
And how would you articulate that?
Yeah. As with any art
Yeah.
or study of something complex, one of the beauties is people say conductors live because they're doing this all the time.
Yeah,
I think conductors live a long time because you're just growing. And you're studying Brahms, or you're studying, I don't care, Lennon and McCartney. And each time you study them, you look at the score and go, Kirk, you are an idiot. You did this in 1998. You have no idea about this piece. Throw that score over there, get a new score, and use your adult mind. And then in 2009, you study it again. And you're always growing, and you're always, I'm not just saying this, you're always in awe, whether it's Lennon McCartney or it's Brahms. You're going, why didn't I see this? And you can see it in great conductors. You see that they have looked inside the music and they know this is a blue cup. And for years you thought this was a polka dot cup or a checkered cup or a pink cup. You got the cup right, but that's about it. And you're growing all the time. And I find it very invigorating and challenging, and once in a while very depressing, because it's so hard to understand that genius. I mean, I consider Lennon and McCartney absolute astonishing. Talk about gifts.
Yeah.
Liverpool boys.
Right,
But
right,
amazing
right.
guys who gave us so much beauty and changed our world.
Yeah.
I don't know that my philosophy about music has changed because All music is wonderful.
Well, what about the creative side of it then? I mean, certainly as a maestro, you are reproducing something, and there's a desire to be true to the music, but there's also a creative element there, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely, because it's the blue cup, but what is it fashioned from, and what's the texture of it, and how deep a blue is the cup, and what is it going to be used for?
So maybe give me an example of a time when your own creativity or your own imagination was sort of infused with. I realize we're talking about music. It'd be better if you could play it for me. But,
yeah, absolutely. So this morning,
Yeah.
very early this morning, I'm studying the Mikado. And there's a piece in there that I think is full of irony and satire. And I know that often people take it at this tempo.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take it a little slower because, first of all, the text that Gilbert has used is absolutely hilarious if you just have a little bit more time to listen to it. And I think it's more biting. It's not just comedic, but I think it's a little more biting about Victorian, Edwardian society. And so that's a kind of subjective way that I might look at something and change the tempo. I also want more bass drum. I also want more bass in it. So I'm changing the dynamic from mezzo piano to mezzo forte. And I'm also thinking about the way I want Pooh-Bah, who happens to be the character, to articulate it when he's singing it. So when I'm working with him, I'm going to ask him if he would please. It's all recreative.
Yeah.
Like an actor is recreating an Ibsen play or Streetcar Named Desire or whatever, Tennessee Williams. It's all recreative, but I find that's the limit of my imagination. I am not McCartney. I do not wake up with Michel in my head. I'm not Brahms. I don't go in the forest and go, oh, what a beautiful violin sonata. Yeah. I'm just, I'm a stage director. I'm an actor. That's all I am.
Yeah. Well, you're an actor who has created some very wonderful experiences for all of us all around the Chicago area. And
thank you so
really
much,
appreciate
Tom.
that
That's very kind
you were
of you.
able to come on here. That is all the time we have for our program. Thank you to Maestro Kirk Muspratt, and for those of you at home for joining us today on the Calumet Roundtable. I'm your host, Tom Roach. Have a great day.